Welcome back. In the world of dinosaur bones, something is out of joint. A skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus rex named Shen was due to be auctioned with appropriate hype in Hong Kong this coming week. Expected to fetch more than £20 million, Shen was abruptly withdrawn from sale by auction house Christie's when doubts emerged over the provenance of parts of the skeleton. The plot thickens as it appears that some of Shen may be replicated from the bones of another T-Rex called Stan. This Jurassic whodunit has serious implications. Globally, millions are made illegally trading bones and fossils, which are diverted from scientists who could study them. David Waterhouse is the Senior Curator of Natural History and Geology at Norfolk Museum and joins us from Norwich. Hello, good to speak to you again.
Yeah, nice to see you, Michael.
And from Northern California, dinosaur paleontologist Danny Anduza, who hosts Paleontologizing, which can be viewed on Twitch. David, first of all, why does it matter that there's an illegal trade? In what way are they diverted from scientists, and why does that matter?
Yeah, I think these are really important things. They're not just art, and I think that's the problem. That's not to downgrade art in any way, but we're picking up scientific information about our environment, the environment in the past. We can learn about our environment in the future. So potentially really important science can be lost if these fossils like T-Rexes and other fossils go straight into the hands of private individuals.
Danny, can you understand why a skeleton could be worth $20 million or pounds or whatever?
Frankly, Michael, I can't. As somebody who's dug up a lot of dinosaurs over the years, I've done a lot of field work in places like Montana and Utah, working with various museums. It doesn't cost very much to dig these things up in the first place. Maybe a few hundred or a few $1,000s to dig up, a handful of bones, like in the Shen specimen. There's really no reason in the world why it should sell for anything over $1 million. Paleontologists like me are flabbergasted every time that happens, and I think it's because the buyers are being misled, as they were in the case of Shen.
Sticking with you, Danny, there was the case of the actor Nicolas Cage, who into his possession there came a skull. Do you want to describe that and tell us what happened about that?
Sure. There's so many of these cases that it's sort of difficult to keep them separate sometimes. But if I recall correctly, this was a Tarbosaurus skull that Nicolas Cage, purchased at auction, and that had been illegally smuggled out of Mongolia. This country kind of nestled between China and Russia. A wealth of dinosaur fossils from that country, one of the world's greatest, dinosaur fossil fields. Recently, the people of Mongolia have been trying to kind of take hold of their heritage and make sure that fossils from their country are not being illegally exported and sold. That had happened in the case of Nicolas Cage's purchase. And I believe it was seized by Interpol and actually taken back to the country of Mongolia, where it rightfully belongs. So I think it's a perfect example of kind of how shady these deals often are. And if you're trying to buy dinosaur fossils, realize that there's a lot of kind of difficult things going on in terms of morality and in terms of law. These are not smart purchases to make.
David, moving away from this, I think, rather hideous illegal trade, tell us about the proper use of dinosaur bones. Tell me about your passion. When you're given a skeleton, you're given a bone, how do you react to it and what do you do with it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on T-Rex digs in Montana, which is where both Stan and Shen originally came from. It's that discovery. I was working for a public institution, so now this T-Rex is on display actually in Los Angeles. And it's that kind of feeling that you're the first person to look at this ever, because there weren't people around when dinosaurs were around, of course. But uncovering something that's 66, 67 million years old. And finding out all that information. And actually, one of the problems with treating skeletons like a sculpture and having it in your foyer of a private company or a private house is that it is just a skeleton. If things are excavated properly, you're looking at the whole environment. You're picking up little bits of information from the sediment around, what the environment was like, what other animals were around, and it's just so much more than just a skeleton. It's that whole entire picture. And what we do in Norfolk is, because we don't have any dinosaurs here, but we do have mammoths. As you know, it's one of the best places in the world to find mammoth fossils. And we encourage responsible fossil collecting. And in the UK, that's not enshrined in law, as would be if you found, say, an archaeological treasure. If you found gold coins, there's laws in place to look after that, the Treasures Act. So we have to do it kind of ourselves, and it's a little bit, think of it like the countryside code. There are certain things, you shouldn't be digging into cliffs. It's dangerous anyway. We've got sites of special scientific interest where you need planning permission to dig in there. But it's also then about sharing your finds. Take it to the local museum. They're not going to take it off you. They might take it for a while to study, and then you get it back. And that's a good way of doing it.
Let me just go back to Danny for a moment. Danny, in the United States, do you have a proper legal environment to protect these bones and fossils?
It's a little bit complicated here in the United States. Unfortunately, if a fossil is found on private land, unfortunately from the perspective of paleontologists, then it's the property of the landowner, and they can do with it what they please. They could donate it to a museum, or they could give it to their dog to chew on. Regardless of the scientific importance of whatever the find might be, ultimately it belongs to the landowner. If it's from private land, if it's from public land, the sorts of lands that I work with, Bureau of Land Management land, state lands, then it belongs to the people of the United States, and it needs to be held in the public trust, held in perpetuity so that scientists can study it and the public can enjoy it. And that's what paleontologists like us think should happen for every scientifically important fossil. They're a benefit to all of humanity. They're part of our collective natural heritage. They belong in a museum.
Danny Anduza and Professor David Waterhouse, happy digging to you both. Thank you very much for being on GB News.
It's been a pleasure.
Well,
thank you.
Leonardo da Vinci drew it, H.G. Wells described it, and Winston Churchill ordered it to be built. The tank